On the other hand, there were many factors also which led to the popularity and the rise of the novel in the 18th century. Why in the 18th century in particular? As we know that before this century, the novel didn't have that full and mature form like today, the novel of today. It was not yet established, right, or even preferred to be written by both writers and also to be read by audiences. Why? Because at that time, before this century, the interest was in the old tradition for recounting and narrating stories, mainly the stories which were existing in the two popular forms at that time, which were poetry and drama. Those include many stories and were narrated and transmitted orally among the masses and the audiences, just orally, right? So this also led writers to avoid, develop and use the novel as their form of expression. But after the 18th century, or in the 18th century in particular, many factors led to the rise and the prominence of the novel as the major form of literary expression. These factors can be divided into two categories or types. We have major factors or main ones, and also we have minor factors. Now, for the major factors, the first one was the Industrial Revolution, which occurred almost in the 18th and 19th centuries. Began in the 18th century, and you know, this revolution brought with it a lot of changes, and they were too many swift, rapid changes, and also they were in all domains. Clear. We have, for example, it brought with it mechanization, use of machines, expansion of cities, shift from agricultural sector to industrial sector. Clear. Also the spread of many new phenomena like pollution, gangs, child labor, new means of transportation, and so on. So all these changes, it didn't find in poetry or drama the appropriate mold, because at the time, before this century, drama and poetry were dealing with what? With religious issues, with romance and love stories, clear allegorical issues, and so on. Therefore, there was a sharp need for a new form of expression that could express and reflect and also discuss and tackle these new rapid changes in that English society of the 18th century. And the ideal form was the novel. The novel with its long and narrative structure. Long, of course. Why long? Because its length lets writers discuss in details all those changes which happened in that English society at the time, with its different also daily life problems, struggles, atrocities, and so on. Right. It was also objective discussion of all these issues in the novel, and this led to the rise of the novel, comparing or at the expense of poetry and drama, that declined after the novel took over and when the novel contained and discussed all these new changes that the audiences were looking for to read about in their literature of the time. Good. Also, second factor which led to the rise of the novel was the rise of middle class. In fact, it's another outcome of a result of the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution led to the rise of the middle class, especially when trade and businesses boomed, and also when society shifted from that agricultural and countryside lifestyle to lifestyle of cities, lifestyle of, I don't know, modern, civilized lifestyle. And this led to the appearance of this middle class. Middle class, here workers were no longer peasants or farmers. Clear. Most society members became no longer peasants or farmers. They became working people in factories, in companies, in businesses, in trade. And this is what led to the spread of the middle class. They were a class not poor, not rich, but they were financially comfortable, clear, and they had time to read literature and to read stories. While the other aristocratic classes and the elite always had their own genres they were interested in, like drama, like also romance, poetry, and so on. Clear. The middle class, in fact, favored the novel, as the novel tackled and discussed within its, of course, body, those changes in that society at that time, and also all what concerned the common people. The common people who were, of course, most of them middle class. So they were looking for reading about themselves, clear, themselves, and those rapid shifts and new events and new innovations, clear, which happened in the society and which touched that middle class. And they found it only in the novel. And the middle class was the majority at the time of society, so this led to the rise of the novel. Good. Also, third factor, which is also a very important factor, is the rise of realism. After the coming of realism, movement of realism, in the 18th century, the novel became the crown of literature. Why? Because realism emphasizes the truthful depiction of daily life. Daily life of whom? Of common people, of ordinary people. At the time they were middle class, clear. So this led to the popularity of the novel, which was adopted widely by realist writers who wrote many novels to, of course, tackle and discuss the different changes in society at that time, clear. And these novels included not topics about monsters or about warriors or about, clear, like in the previous ages, but about daily life struggles of the middle class. And they also dealt with them objectively, in details, and truthfully, clear. And that's what attracted the majority of people, the commons, middle class, working people, to read more and more novels and to ask for more and more novels, which included that type of themes. Also, novel shares with realism the same interest in the human being as a social, if you can say, as a social character, clear, as a social being in himself. Both believed in the dictum of Zander Pope, who said that the proper study of mankind is man. So here we have shift from that allegorical and romantic and religious, as you see here, spirit of Middle Ages, to that realistic discussion and depiction and presentation of the new society with all its struggles, problems, daily life, atrocities, and the challenges found in the novel. Also, there was another factor, which is the printing advancements. Book manufacturing or industry became more advanced. It witnessed a big revolution. There were new methods, made books easier to read, and also cheaper to produce. And they became affordable. Everyone could read book, could buy a book, clear, right? and available also to people in low prices. And this encouraged, of course, writers to produce more novels to gain profits, clear, and also encouraged readers also to read more, and this led to the wide readership of novels. Also, we have the increasing literacy rates. In the 18th century, all classes attended schools. Kids, poor, working people, rich, all of them, adults, women also, they became literate, or could read and write. Clear. And this increased, of course, the demand of novels, and also boosted the market and popularity of novels. All these literate people, regardless of their age, of their also sex, were looking and were demanding the platform of literature that could reflect their daily lives and their challenges, clear, and their also struggles in their society at that time. Besides these major factors, also there were many minor factors which led to the rise of the novel and its popularity at the expense of its two predecessors, drama and poetry. Now, the first minor factor was the spread of newspapers and magazines. And this is logical, mainly after the advancement which happened in printing. In printing led to the popularity of different types of published papers, if you can say, like newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, leaflets, and so on. And these attracted both writers to publish, of course, their works on them in the form of episodes, because many writers at the time published their novels in the form of episodes on those newspapers issues, clear. And also the majority of middle class also were reading those newspapers and also the stories written by those writers on them. And this led to the rise of the novel. Also, we have the decline of drama and romance in the 18th century in front of the novel popularity. Why? Because, as we said before, that these two forms, drama and poetry, were not able to keep up, to mount to the level of those challenges and swift changes which happened in English society at that time. Clear. They stayed stagnant with the spirit of the previous age, Elizabethan age, and also Middle Ages, tackling topics like courtly love, knights, chivalry, heroes, warriors, or kings of ancient times. Clear. But the novel came to tackle those daily life struggles, problems, troubles that were affecting and involving the majority of the middle class and common people in that English society of the 18th century. And they could, these novels, of course, depict skillfully and in details and truthfully and objectively all those changes and innovations, whether they were positive or negative, in the 18th century English society. And this led to the decline of drama and poetry in front of this form of expression. Also, there was a rise of women writers and also readers. The 18th century witnessed the prominence of many brilliant female writers like Jane Austen and her famous works like Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility, also Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, also Fanny Burney's Evelina. Right, these writers' brilliant styles and also popularity led to the rise of the novel. Clear. Why? Because they could explore for the first time women's favorite topics and themes like women's lives, dreams, challenges. They could voice, clear, the cause of women in that society at that time. Clear. And they attracted, of course, more women readers and the genre here of female writing, and also wider class of leadership among women, or females, yes, became more and more popular, and this led to, of course, popularity and the prosperity of the novel. Also, we have the rise of commercial fiction. It means the novel became a product, a commercial product. It means writers or craft of writing became professional job and career. Through it, writers could sustain themselves financially, could earn money, could make and gain a lot of profits to become rich and wealthy. Clear? And this supported them to write more and more novels. And this, of course, met the need of the thirsty middle-class readers who were always needing and looking for more and more novels to read about the different issues which was happening and going on in their society. Right. Also, last but not least, we have the spread of mobile libraries. At the time in England, there was what we call mobile libraries. These were new innovation, a form of libraries which increased public readership. And the novels in these libraries were, of course, given, or they were accessing the audiences and readers till their homes. They were even sent to readers to their homes, to their houses. And also, this led to, we can say, encourage people to join those mobile libraries. They became members and they had advantages of reading different novels and different types of books thanks to those accessible, right, or easy to reach, we can say, mobile libraries, which used to tour the cities and the streets and so on to approach the book and the novel to the reader at that time. Now we come to types of novels. In fact, in the 18th and 19th centuries, there were many types of novels, but we try today to cover just the main popular types. The first type was called the picaresque novel. Picaresque novel. This type, in fact, is originally Spanish type, which came from the Spanish language and literature. In fact, the term picaresque itself came from the Spanish word picaro, which means dishonest. But this type of novels, picaresque novel, is about a hero who travels to different places undertaking many adventures. Clear means a character who undertakes a long journey of travel. Clear, and he also find in this novel the adventures, depiction of the adventures of this travel and this character. Right. It narrates a long story with a number of separate events. It means this novel has a kind of separate parts, episodic structure. Clear. Sometimes it's comic, violent, or even complex. And also it has realistic tone in its style, and also satirical too, in aim. The first picaresque novel was the famous Spanish novel written by Don Quixote, by Miguel Cervantes. The Spanish writer Cervantes wrote the novel of Don Quixote in almost 17th century, and this novel was considered or is considered till now as the first novel in literature with the full form, modern, mature form of the novel. Also, in English literature, we have an example of a picaresque novel in the work of Thomas Nashe, The Unfortunate Traveller. Besides the works of Daniel Defoe and also Henry Fielding. So these novels of these writers also are classified as picaresque novels. Second type is called epistolary novel. Epistolary novel, also the word epistle means letter, and this novel or this type has the form of a chain of letters through which the main character communicates with others. With others. An example of this was Pamela, novel of Pamela by Samuel Richardson. Again, we have also a third type, which is domestic novel. This one is a story about, or narrates a story about social life and daily lives of characters with a simple style, like the novels of Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion, and so on. It's about life of a character and his social interaction with society and so on. Right. Also, we have the Gothic novel. Gothic. It's a story which includes a mixture of narrative structure with supernatural and terror elements, like the implementation of or the use of ghosts, vampires, goblins. So those novels which include these issues or these type of issues are called Gothic novels. Clear? And this type of Gothic novel, in fact, flourished at the end mainly of the 18th century with Romantic writers, because Romantic writers also used imagination. You know, they used imagination, too much imagination in their novels, and these supernatural issues were an example of the use of imagination. They were imaginative characters, vampires, well, ghosts, and so on. Like we have an example here, the novel of Emily Bronte, which is Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights, which included ghosts in its narrative load. Clear? Also, another type was the historical novel. It is a fictional narrative that tells the story, or the history, and reproduces it artistically. It means here the writer tends in his novel to narrate a series of historical events which happened in the past, but in a literary form, literary way. He makes them a kind of story. Of course, he uses imagination, clear, to taint his historical novel with its aesthetic touch, of course. An example of this, we have the novel of Rob Roy by Walter Scott. Also, we have another type, which is the comic novel. The comic, this novel sets the characters or put them in an absurd and strange situation or setting. It can be brutal with negative vision of life. An example of this was the work of Lawrence Sterne, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy. Clear? So these are the commonest types of novels which appeared at the time in the 18th and 19th centuries. Now, we come to the major and the prominent novelists and novels which appeared in the 18th century at that time. We have the first novelist or male novelist was Daniel Defoe, who was born in 1660 and died in 1731, and his masterpiece novel Robinson Crusoe, about a man who was sailing in the sea, then his boat or his ship broke down, and he refugied or found refuge in an island where he lived and spent a lot of time there. Clear? Robinson Crusoe by L. Defoe. Also, we have the first English female writer was Afra Behn, who lived in the 17th century and wrote the novel of Orinoco. Clear? Novel of Orinoco in 1688. Also, we have many other English prominent writers like Samuel Richardson, who wrote Pamela and other also works. Also, we have Henry Fielding and his masterpiece Tom Jones, and later, many other also writers came, like Jane Austen and her novels, which made the novel always popular and more prominent genre that replaced both drama and poetry at that time. The novel, in fact, after its emergence and rise in the 18th century, kept evolving, clear, and changing and maturing more and more. Mainly in the first half of the 19th century, it was influenced by the Romantic movement, which focused, of course, on imagination, passion, and also nature, sublime awe of nature, and of course it discounted the use of logic and intellect in literature. That's why we found in this first half of the century the prosperity of Gothic novel, which became popular with its supernatural elements, thanks to the spread and the dominance of the Romantic movement. Clear. For example, we have many examples, like, as I mentioned before, the novel of Emily Bronte, which is Wuthering Heights. It was a Gothic romance. Also, Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte. The two Bronte sisters wrote Gothic novels. Also, we have the famous novel The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, famous writer. Also, Moby Dick by Herman Melville, right? And Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and also the works of Jane Austen. All these presented good examples of the Gothic novel, which was influenced by the Romantic spirit of the movement. Clear. Then later, with the Victorian, or in the Victorian age or era, the novel also dominated and became more and more popular. Why? Since it focused and portrayed and depicted also middle class life, clear, and also the social changes and issues and problems which were happening at the time in that Victorian era. We have the famous writer who excelled with his novels, Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens, a famous Victorian novelist who wrote many works which are until now popular and widely read among the audiences. Then in the 19th century, Realism came and boomed, of course, and boosted the novel more and more by its truthful depiction of daily life struggles of the middle class. Then, of course, naturalism also followed it and continued the journey of imposing the rise of the novel more and more. And in our 20th century, also, there were two major movements. In the first half, before the Second World War, there was what we call the Modernist movement, clear movement, which adopted new techniques, narrative techniques like stream of consciousness, clear, and also with brilliant writers at the time, novelists like Virginia Woolf, and also James Joyce, the Irish writer, clear, and also Joseph Conrad and the masterpiece Heart of Darkness. They could, of course, popularize the novel more and more. Then after the Second World War, especially in 1945, another movement appeared, which was the postmodern or contemporary novel or movement, with its also new techniques of narration, right, and narratology, like fragmentation, like playfulness of language and time, like experimentation in writing. This also led to the rise of the novel, right, and took it to a higher and different level also. So this is briefly the history of the novel since the 18th century till our modern days. Thanks so much for attention and attentiveness.